Today on Beyond the Classroom, we have Dr. Iris Wagstaff. And Dr. Iris Wagstaff is a scientist. She's an educator. She's a mentor, a researcher, policy advisor, and STEM advocate. And you know, that's how we roll here on Beyond the Classroom. And right now she serves as the STEM program director in the, hold on, it's a mouthful, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department of AAAS, which is the American Association for the Advancement of Science. And she manages programs at the undergraduate, graduate, and postdoctoral levels. So Iris comes into contact with our students on whatever part of their academic path they're on once they graduate from high school. And she even does some of that outreach on the side. She got her side hustle where she's doing STEM outreach and advocacy, which I think we all have. And so we have to, you know, and I'll say it, and we're going to get into that in a few minutes. But, you know, Iris is like the person that brings together undergraduate students, graduate students, lets them present their work. She has an annual conference called EARN. We're going to talk about that. And it's just amazing to see the work that she does, particularly for our students at HBCUs that are engaged in research activities, and giving them a platform to engage, to get their feet wet, and to start getting on that path to research, being professionals, being comfortable talking about their work, coming together with colleagues and all that. So I'm going to shut up right now so we can get into it with Dr. Iris Wagstaff. And I'm just pleased to have her on the show. And she's a wealth of knowledge and information. And especially when it comes to the diversity, equity, and inclusion, and making sure not just for any branch of science, but all of the sciences, not just AAA P or AAA-B or AAA-C for chemistry or CH or whatever y'all call it. Y'all be because she has a background in chemistry. And also, before we go any further, always let our HBCU alums give a shout out to their HBCU.
Aggie Pride. Woo!
And here we go, Beyond the Classroom listeners. We have us another Aggie here, which is just fine with me. I mean, we love all of our HBCUs.
Yes, we do.
You know, we got us an Aggie today, and she's awesome. You know, she's not a pirate, but we're going to keep her anyway. Yes, welcome to Beyond the Classroom, Dr. Wagstaff.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Great. Now, well, let's just dive right in. You got some DOJ stuff in here.
Yeah.
And you, so, yeah, we got a whole lot to talk about. So first, let's start off with AAAS.
Sure.
Tell us why, how you got involved in AAAS. How did you end up with AAAS?
Oh, sure. So first of all, AAAS, short, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, is the oldest and largest general scientific organization in the world. We have over 200,000 members across 91 countries, and our mission is to advance science and engineering for the benefit of all people. How I found out about AAAS is I was a AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellow from 2015 to 2017, and that's what actually brought me to Washington, D.C. from my home state of North Carolina. And the Science and Technology Policy Fellowship Program is an awesome program that I'm always promoting, but it's basically to give STEM professionals, you have to have completed your PhD in any STEM field, but it gives us an opportunity to come to Washington, D.C. and to work on national science policy efforts and initiatives. And we're placed throughout one of the many federal science agencies throughout Washington, D.C., and we work on challenging problems and issues for either 1 year or 2 years. And, you know, my passion has always been STEM education, outreach and advocacy, broadening participation in STEM, helping to develop a diverse talent pipeline. So those are the issues that I worked on at the Department of Justice at the National Institute of Justice, which is the science agency of DOJ that most people have never heard of. The NIJ,
I was about to say that. I had never heard of it.
right in Chinatown, downtown DC. But
Oh,
the national,
cool.
yeah. So I actually chose NIJ, for my fellowship. This really being strategic. I had offers at the National Science Foundation and other agencies, but I was like, I never heard of this, small agency, and they're really responsible for all of the advances that we see with DNA, the development of forensic science research,
Mhm.
using science to support justice and to support victims of criminal acts. So I was just really, passionate about the work that this small agency was doing. And the work that I did at NIJ was actually developing a strategic diversity and inclusion plan for the whole agency to help them really diversify their R&D peer reviewers, the people who apply for their grants. So I did a lot of outreach to HBCUs, just letting them know, hey, there's all this grant money available for your STEM departments that you
Right.
don't know about. So I
Don't
worked,
know anything
yeah,
about.
yeah, so I
Yes.
work closely with the White House HBCU initiative. I did presentations and a lot of outreach just to share these opportunities with HBCUs that many of them had never heard of. So that's how I found out about job opportunities at AAAS. I actually ended my fellowship early to take on the role at AAAS in March of 2017.
Well, that's
Which is where
amazing.
I am now. Yeah.
How come our HBCUs don't know about these projects and these initiatives?
Yeah, it's so much out there, and a lot of HBCUs are really just strapped down with, administrative, type things, and you really have to have a dedicated grants office that's really working to promote these opportunities with your universities. And every university is different. Some universities have more resources, but we know, across the board, a lot of our HBCUs and MSIs are under-resourced. That's one thing.
Hmm.
There's a lot of technical assistance needs and just
Hmm.
awareness needs, just like, hey, these grant opportunities are available. So, it's a number of issues. And I think it's just great opportunities just to share these resources with our HBCUs to help, strengthen their research capacity and infrastructure.
Yeah, that's the part I wanted to address briefly, the infrastructure, because that's what I used to do when I was at Hampton and Howard. Is to I did research in lidar and theory regarding transport of particles, but then I switched from physics over to admin, but I straddled the fence. I had both sides, but the infrastructure is what I want to talk about. Um, a lot of our HBCUs are smaller
Mm-hmm.
colleges, as you know. The top 5 or 10, they're the same top 5 or 10. Fortunately, both of us went to those. I'm not to knock the others, but
Okay. Yeah.
it's just the same schools in the top 5 or 10. But how can the other schools get to a point where their programs are strengthened as far as infrastructure? I know infrastructure costs money, and most of the
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure that's required now with all of the cybersecurity and the AI and the esports or whatever is going on, and all of the stuff that the students that you support, they need a robust infrastructure as
Mm-hmm.
far as the technology is concerned to be able to do quality research and compete. How we fix that problem? I ask everybody that I need to
It's a
hear, and
hard
I'm
one.
like, this is what I'm really passionate about,
Yeah.
and I'm looking to partner with somebody to start addressing that from a ground up
Yeah.
policy, assessment, whatever. So what have you seen that's been a hindrance to some of our HBCUs as far as infrastructure is concerned to help
Yeah.
them move forward?
Yeah, so I just touched on it briefly. I think knowledge is power. So just being aware of multiple grant opportunities that are available from a National Science Foundation, or a National Institute of Health, or another federal agency, and even non-federal agencies have a plethora of grant opportunities that are available specifically for HBCUs. So the funding for my Emerging Researchers National Conference in STEM actually comes from the HBCU up
Right.
program at
Mhm.
the National Science
Science
Foundation.
Foundation.
So there are many grant opportunities. So just awareness, really attracting quality faculty and people to your university that can bring these resources on, who first of all know about the resources and
Yeah.
can bring those resources to the college or university. So just really being aware of the multiple grant opportunities and resources that are specifically devoted for HBCUs and MSIs for research and for infrastructure and capacity building. I think the QEM network also does technical assistance for HBCUs.
Whoa, what's QEM?
Sorry, quality education for minorities. That's also a resource, and they do webinars, all
Mm-hmm.
types of workshops on federal grant opportunities, as well as non-federal grant opportunities specifically targeted for HBCUs. Again, the
Okay.
White House Initiative on HBCUs is another resource
Mm-hmm.
for funding and other resource opportunities. So just really being aware of all these opportunities and really attracting quality quality faculty, quality
Mm-hmm.
staff to your college and university.
Okay.
I think that's the start to really tackle these issues. Mhm.
Well, that is a great starting place. Once the grant is written and awarded,
Mhm.
I know one of the questions is usually asked is, how do you plan to sustain this thing at the end of us funding it?
Mhm.
So how many schools have issues sustaining programs afterwards, and how is that mitigated? If you have an answer for my
Yeah,
question.
I don't really have a handle on, if you look at the whole landscape of, HBCU awardees, especially for federal grants having sustainability issues. But one way to address that is partnerships and collaborations.
Mm-hmm.
So we should, I come from an industry background. I spent 15 years in the chemical industry at Roman Haas, which is now Dow Chemical. So really building out your networks and collaborative strategic partnerships with industry,
Mm-hmm.
with other organizations, nonprofits, just really leveraging those networks, because that is how
Okay.
you institutionalize a lot of efforts and the initiatives in colleges and universities, is through collaborative partnerships. So I
Right.
think that goes a long way for sustainability.
Okay, it does. I guess, you know what, I think, and we can talk about this offline or online or whatever. I don't know if there's a standard guidebook, template, playbook that can be disseminated. I know there is, and I see you shaking
Right.
your head. That is more helpful to make these things materialize, because each HBCU has a different structure as far as how their research area is organized. Some have VPs for research, some have VPs for development, some have
Right.
VPs that do both jobs, and then some of them
Right.
may not have either, but
Right.
they have faculty that are researchers. So is there anything that we can come up with in general together, or as a holistic group of people interested in pushing this effort forward and making sure that HBCUs stay relevant? I think there's some sort of standardization, because the grant institutions have a standard format on how you have to apply, what you have to do, who
Right.
has to say what and do what font you use, what size
Right.
font. It's standardized to that granular level. What is your opinion on how we can try to make this process easier for all HBCUs, because some of them are farther advanced than others? And
Mhm.
it shouldn't be a competition per se
Mhm.
about
Mhm.
who's doing what or who got the most money. It
Right.
should be about us collecting and grabbing as much of that money that's available to us
Yeah.
as we possibly can do. Because I know that I've talked to several people who said a whole lot of money gets left on the table that HBCUs don't even apply for. So how do
Mhm.
we get to the point where we A, know where it is, B, know what it is, C, be able to say, okay, A&T is strong in this area, or
Mhm.
Hampton strong in that area, or Prairie View strong in another area, and say, okay, let's get this information to them. Let's help them get this money. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. I think HBCUs and MSIs across the board need to leverage their strengths and address their weaknesses. And again, one way to do this and to even find out about these opportunities, again, the White House HBCU initiative, every week, all you have to do is just, go to their website. They have webinars, they have workshops. They literally provide technical assistance for how to go about applying all of these federal grants and resources. They actually walk you through all of the steps. So just participating in the workshops and the webinars, some of them are online, some of them are local. So they actually walk you through the steps of, hey, these are grants and resources that are available. This is how you apply. They have different people from the different grant offering organizations there to answer your questions in person or on live. So just even being aware that these resources are available, and if you don't go to the workshops or don't attend the webinars, then you won't know. So I think
That's true.
just participating in what's already available is a huge step, because again, there are a number of resources available. A lot of them are virtual for people that can't come in person. So and that's the goal of all of these all of this outreach, that again, Quality for Education Minorities, a White House HBCU initiatives, they all do that. The National Science Foundation, since they fund most of the grants that grant projects that I run, we also have PI meetings, or principal investigator meetings. And they're not only for current PIs, but they're for anybody that's interested in learning about how to apply for that grant. So during the EARN conference, we also have the HBCU up PI meeting. And that is for not just anybody who's a current grantee, but anybody who's interested in learning about how do they go about applying for the grant. So participating, and these are throughout the year, all over the country, all of the time. So all federal agencies have some type of grantee meeting, and it's not just for grantees, but anybody that's interested in learning about their opportunity. So again, that's another resource available just for the research and the PI community. So just, I think, number one, taking advantage, first of all, knowing about the resources, taking advantage of what's already available that's not being taken advantage of. And then the second thing that I've really been seeing over the last 5 years, you mentioned, the disparity across capacity levels for HBCUs. So some, schools are really good and have a really strong research program, some are not. So we're really seeing consortia being developed where 4 or 5 schools might partner together, with different strength levels and different areas of expertise, and together to go after these grant opportunities. That's another strategy, is if, you're good in, one area, but we can another area partner with another HBCU and build a consortium. So we're really seeing a lot of these consortia of HBCUs and MSIs really partnering together to address to leverage their strengths and address their weaknesses as far as research capacity. So that's another strategy as well.
Okay. Now, for my listeners, oh, by the way, listeners, if you just joined us, this is Beyond the Classroom, and I am speaking with Dr. Iris Wagstaff. And Dr. Wagstaff works for AAAS, which is the American Association for the Advancement of Science. She's a diversity and equity and inclusion guru there, and she also works with other projects, and she's the person that organizes the Emerging Researchers Network Conference. Did I get
National
it right?
Conferences.
National.
EARN for short.
Yes, EARN. I don't know why I want to keep saying network. Well, whatever I call it, but yeah, National Conference, EARN, and EARN is a great opportunity for students, particularly those at HBCUs, to come and research, present their research and interact with researchers, and just network with each other. So with our disparity levels being, up and down different for each HBCU, it's a benefit to have students from the ones that aren't, the top 10s of HBCUs interact with the top 10s that, they may come from smaller schools. So that's a way for them to build networks within their student body and move forward and take them with them through their professional careers.
Oh, and then they bring that back to their college or university. So that's a way of building up that talent and research capacity as well.
Right. And they take it to their school, and then they may move on and go somewhere else, but at least they were able to come to earn and get that experience, because a lot of times our HBCUs either don't have the finances, or whatever departments may not send students to conferences. They may come to a conference if the conference sponsors the travel and lodging, but a lot of times departments don't have the resources to send students, or they can send a couple students to a conference like EARN. Either participate as a poster session or as a presenter, or just to come and observe. So it's important that we get this information out there, and that, of course, at the end of the show, Iris is going to tell us where to find her. We're going to have her cell number, her address, her email, website. No, we're not going to have all that. I know, I'm just playing, Iris.
I'll give you the website.
We'll be able to find her. And if you can't find her, I can find her, and I'll just tell her what you want to know. And so, but yeah, it's a real issue, particularly. I mean, I don't want to say it's an issue in a bad way. It's just something that we, as advocates for STEM and for HBCUs, need to be aware of. That, even if you're at a corporation and you went to an HBCU or you didn't, but understand that we have conferences that students should be attending. And a lot of them can't come because it's cost prohibitive. And we have National Society of Black Physicists Conference in Rhode Island. And there have been several students who said their department couldn't afford to pay for them because NSF funds a certain number of students. They can't fund all the students through the grant because we have to also pay for the conference and some other stuff. But, if corporations and other interested persons could come together and help sponsor some of their students at these HBCUs, especially if you got a STEM degree from your HBCU, sponsor somebody in your, in your field, or even, they don't even have to be in your field. Just help the department get those students to those conferences. All right. I'm off the soapbox for a minute.
But I'll just make a small pitch for I present at most of the STEM conferences during the year. All of them provide travel awards. So that's another awareness issue. Maybe students don't know, but I'm passionate about the EARN conference because that's close to my heart. We provide 300 to 400 travel awards every year, but all of the STEM conferences that I present, they all provide travel awards for students. But if you don't know and don't apply, you won't get a travel award. So just the knowledge and awareness is that all of these STEM conferences have a deadline. They're usually in February or March or early in the year, but all of them provide travel awards. So I know funding is usually an issue, but apply for a travel award. They're all available with all of these conferences. So again, that's just another note, just to be aware that all of these conferences provide travel awards. And it's not necessarily based on GPA or anything like that. They're usually very short applications. So apply for a travel award. That's another resource that's available to our students that they might not know about.
They might not know about it, but but some of them, even though you do give out, I know you guys give out a lot of awards for travel and lodging, especially those that are presenting. But if you had 1,000 students that wanted to come to EARN and only 600 of them needed financial assistance, then there's
it's limited, definitely. But check with your a lot of students don't talk with their undergraduate coordinator at the university or their graduate coordinator. Reach outside of your department. I had to do a lot of reaching outside of my department to get funding. So I mean, these are the types of professional development workshops that I also do with students, is just letting them know how to go about, that hustle and finding money when it seems like it's not available. You just might not be aware of where to look. So
yeah, that's correct. And a lot of undergraduate students don't know that they have to look, or there is somewhere to look. Yeah.
Right. And I'll plug another place to look, because I'm a 25-year member of NOBSHE and the American Chemical Society. So NOBSHE is the National Organization of Black Chemists and Chemical Engineers. So I'm a huge proponent of being a member of your professional scientific organization for your discipline, because that is another place to find funding to go to conferences. So there's many resources available. A lot of, like I said, the STEM conferences themselves, being a part of your professional scientific or, engineering society or organization, they also have funding and resources. So there's many ways to go about it. And those are the types of professional development workshops that I do for undergrad and grad students, as well as postdocs in my spare time.
Yes, and it looks really good on your resume when you have presentations and publications, not just, I just graduated and I used to work at McDonald's or something. I mean, without having had some experience in your field. And I know, most students graduate and they haven't had any real professional experience. Hence the whole entry level thing. But, being able to add stuff to your resume and say, well, I may not have had a full-time job, but I have presented at 3 conferences and written papers and co-authored stuff. And even just as a participant going to a conference. And
that's a good point, because even if you don't present, the fact that you were there, that should be on your resume, or you did a workshop, or you participated in a session. That is all professional development to build your resume and your CV, and you don't always have to present. Just participating actively and being engaged, that's something to be noted.
Yes, and what I want to add to that, Iris, and I'm very bad at it, and I realized that a couple weeks ago, that I don't keep a spreadsheet of events that I've participated in. And so stuff has fallen through the cracks for me. And I was like, I forgot about the thing I have actually, but there's stuff that's relevant, especially now that I'm an entrepreneur. I did manage a subcontract for a year and a half or 2 years. And it was an IDIQ, indefinite demand, was it indefinite quantity? So anyway, IDIQ contract, had an employee under me. I forgot all about it because, it was a long time ago, but I'm like, that's really relevant to put down as past performance and stuff like that. But to get back to our conversation about higher ed and conferences and STEM and science and all of those things, keep up with what you're doing, keep up with what you did, make sure you jot it down, make sure you update your resume, particularly as a student that's getting ready to go out there and try to find work. And what I used to tell all my work study students and any student that'll listen, create a LinkedIn account.
Yes.
Create a LinkedIn account.
So important. So
Do
important.
not put a crazy looking picture up there.
Yeah, that's so. I just spoke about that at a conference a couple weeks ago. It's so important. A lot of students don't really recognize the value of LinkedIn, because that is a place that employers are seeking people that have your talent. And if you're not there, they can't offer you opportunities. I get a lot of messages inboxing me from like talent scouts and headhunters offering me jobs that I'm not even interested in, because I have a presence on LinkedIn. It's huge. So that's another resource that students should be using. If they're presenting somewhere or going to the conference, they should be posting that on LinkedIn.
Not Snapchat, on LinkedIn, or whatever y'all using now, TikTok. I don't even know what TikTok is other than some crazy videos. But
definitely, employers are, they use LinkedIn as a first, a first pass to, look for talent and screen talent. So I definitely recommend that students should have a presence on LinkedIn.
Yes, they should. And if you are a faculty member listening, or if you're a parent listening that has a child that is a student right now, make sure your child sets up their LinkedIn account. They don't have to be an employed person.
Nope,
Students can have LinkedIn accounts.
nope.
They talk about what they're studying. They talk about what they've done while they're studying, what they're studying. And, they present themselves and their interests and, all of that in LinkedIn. And
Absolutely.
it's not a social media site, but it kind of is. But some people use it as social media, which is not supposed to be. It's a professional site where you network with people and people find you, you find them. Because I know I just go out and I'm like, oh, I want to link in with so-and-so. I want to link to all the presidents at all the HBCUs. I want to, I actually target people, but I also get targeted a lot. I get a whole lot of, Dr. Coleman, I would love to come on your show and talk about my blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, well, I kind of refer you to my agent because I be getting too many of those, which is fine. I'm thankful that people are listening, and I'm thankful that they have something to contribute that maybe I haven't heard from, or I don't know them, but a lot of people around the country are doing so many different things in STEM. Now, that leads me to the next question, Iris.
Yeah.
Every other person on LinkedIn says they do something in STEM. How do you know who's legit? I mean, everybody's passion is there. I assume. I'll say 90% of them have the passion because some of them are in it for the money if there's money available.
Yeah.
Tell me one of I found imposter STEM, fake person trying to do STEM outreach. Talk to me about that.
I mean, that comes out in the wash. I mean, STEM has been like the buzzword for at least the last decade.
Yes, it has.
But, I've been working in this space for almost 25 years, across all levels, K-12,
exactly.
Undergrad, grad students, across sectors, industry, academia.
But even when you were studying as a student, you were doing STEM.
Yeah, before it was STEM.
STEM. Exactly.
Yeah.
As a child, you knew you were doing science and math stuff. So, you don't just all of a sudden wake up and say, oh, I want to study chemistry. No, you already knew that you wanted to be something in science, doing something in science way before you went to A&T. So these people that jumped in the on the bandwagon when STEM became that buzzword, what are they? Are they causing more harm than good? What are they doing?
That's a philosophical question. I think,
know.
I think if it benefits, it's definitely like a commodity now. Like, I want 2 orders of STEM, please.
Exactly.
It's definitely a commodity. And some fries. But it's definitely a commodity. But I think, if you have a program or resource or initiative that's going to help our students, our parents, our teachers, our faculty, I'm all for it. Do we want authenticity? Yes. But do you have something that's going to benefit, in advanced science and education for our students, our parents, our teachers, our universities? I'm willing to talk with you. Everything comes out in the wash in the end anyway, and you find out true intent. But if there's some opportunities that I think are beneficial, again, to our students, then I'm definitely interested. At least in finding more about it. So.
But all of them don't make it to your level, Iris. It's like a lot of little STEM person, outreach person that wants to do a weekend workshop or make slime and all that kind of stuff. I think that I have a higher standard or expectation, and so that's why I'm asking you this about the authenticity. And, I am not knocking public school teachers, private school teachers, or whatever, but they aren't official experts.
And a lot of them aren't equipped and trained. And so, definitely at the K-12 level, we have, I don't know the exact percentage. It varies between like 40 and 70%. And definitely at the middle school level who are teaching math and science, who aren't trained in math and science. They have education degrees. So a lot of the work that I do is definitely with science and math teachers, just on culturally relevant pedagogy, on inquiry-based problem solving, using all those strategies to actually help students connect the science that they learn in the classroom to the real world, and to help them leverage their, their lived experience. So and to me, if you can't connect what you learned in the classroom to your everyday life, then it's useless. So really just helping students understand that science is everywhere. I'm very passionate about that, and that, their background matters, where they come from matters, and all that plays into building science identity and building confidence, in STEM. So I do a lot of work with middle school teachers just on, culturally relevant pedagogy, how to, teach science and math using inquiry-based methods and problem solving, project planning, all those different types of strategies to help students actually connect to science, build confidence in STEM. I mean, that really goes a long way. So there is an issue of preparation, a lot of teachers not just being equipped. Just working with STEM professionals, that's another thing that I try to do, is pair teachers with STEM professionals to actually get because the STEM professional is the content expert in a lot of cases. And so they work and partner with math and science teachers at the middle school level, definitely. So you see more teachers at the high school level that actually, have more content preparation in math and science, because it's at the high school level. So the issues are different at different levels. At the K-12 level, it's about exposure, right? It's at the elementary and middle school level, it's about exposure. So just really let his kids know, like, what are the opportunities? What are the different types of careers in science? Like, what's the difference between chemistry and physics and engineering? So just really exposure, getting their hands wet and really jumping into learning about like what STEM is beyond the acronym. At the high school level, you're really preparing for college, right? So it's all about, being prepared for college, thinking about, careers. Once you get into college, it's about getting through college, and a career. So there are different issues, at different stages and different levels. And again, like one thing I like to mention is that, the goal of STEM education for me isn't to get everybody to go into a STEM career. Right. That's not the goal. There are specific qualities and skills that are embedded in STEM education that are important no matter, whether you go into a STEM career or not. Right. So some of the skills that are embedded in any type of STEM education and preparation is critical thinking, it's problem solving, and it's teamwork. You need that regardless of what career you end up in. So I think, one of the myths is that people think, the whole reason why we're doing all this work is that we're trying to get everybody to go into a STEM career. And that's not the goal and objective of the work that I do in the community, is to make students aware of these opportunities and to help build those skills that are embedded in STEM education that they will need regardless, right, of what job they wind up going into. And I feel like education is a utility. It's a way to, advance equity. There's some social justice issues attached to education. And again, I don't think the whole goal of STEM education is to solely build the STEM, the STEM workforce, right? It's to create, critically thinking citizens that can, be able to, advance their educational and career goals, no matter what they might be, but, really participate as an educated and critically thinking citizen, in this world. So, that's what I think education is about in general.
It is. Let me ask you this. What happened other than, smart devices and PDAs and stuff that were being developed that caused this big old STEM revolution? I mean, it wasn't like a thing that we had to deal with when we were going to K-12 or whatever. We just knew that we wanted to study something that was science related, or a concentration under science. We wanted to either be a biology major, chemistry, physics, or life science or whatever. Life science was biology in junior high school, but there are other disciplines under science. Computer science, engineering is a separate one, but you still have to come across the line over in the math and the science to be an engineer. So before there was STEM, there were us people and other people who decided they wanted to study something under STEM. What happened that it became like the buzzword and poster child of education? Is it because of jobs?
Yeah, so I don't think like one thing necessarily happened. I won't go into all of the like educational policy piece, which I also do. I'm a social scientist, so I do STEM education, research and policy, but a number of things happened. We had the whole, space race, in the 50s and 60s. So that was the spurt. Actually, the National Science Foundation, NSF, is credited with creating the term STEM from a program officer in the early 90s. So that's where we actually got the term STEM. And, we had a number of changes in education in general, like, policies like No Child Left Behind. We had some other federal policies like the America Competes Act. So we had some, different educational policies put in place. We had the federal government stepping in saying, hey, we really want to, lead in advancing STEM education. So we had a number of federal science agencies like National Science Foundation and NASA and Department of Education really getting involved in pushing STEM to the forefront. So they really, been at the forefront of pushing STEM over the last 10 years. And then, educational policies across states differ when it comes to STEM. I'm really proud of my home state of North Carolina. We have a very strong STEM presence. We have Math Science Education Network that provides like informal science programs across the state. At one of my alma maters, North Carolina State University, we have the Science House. So we have a lot of initiatives and programs across the state to strengthen STEM, not only for students, but teachers and resources for parents as well. So I think a number of, like I said, just to summarize, a number of things have happened over the last 20 years. Changes in educational policy, the role of the federal government and other federal agencies really coming forward. A lot of interest from industry. So now you see like a lot of industries actually having, education departments within their company to really advance STEM education. So a lot of the industries are recognizing, hey, if we don't invest in building this talent up front, we won't have the staff, and the workers that we need to actually work in our companies, and in our industry. So a lot of industries, a lot of companies are really investing in STEM education up front to actually build a pool of talent. So that might be at K-12 level, it might be providing scholarships or fellowships or internships, like you said, and then travel awards. So we've really seen a lot of industries, and different sectors get involved with actually advancing STEM education.
Okay, I have a hypothetical, and I don't like using cliches, but I'm going to put this one out there. Devil's advocate. Okay. Let's say the music industry decided that we don't have enough musicians, and there was this big push for music entertainment. I'm going to just make up some stuff. MET. Music entertainment today and tomorrow. So, and everybody was given a piano or a violin or a trumpet. Now, everybody is not musically inclined, but, push is happening. We need more musicians. We need more musicians. We need more musicians. So everybody's given an instrument to play. I used to play a violin back in the day because I'm a nerd and that's what we do. I followed a strict nerd guideline. I did all the nerdy stuff. I can't dance and all that other stuff, asthma and all that. But I fit the mold to be in STEM. I like math. Everybody doesn't like math. Right. And math is an integral part. If you can't get that piece done, you're not going to get the rest of it done. Mm-hmm. So how is that part being dealt with policy wise or whatever. Because I mean, everybody's not going to be able to do the thing. It's not something that's all encompassing everybody. We are the world. We are the STEM. It don't work like that, Iris.
Right.
So how do you deal with that? Because I know if somebody hand me a trombone or a trumpet, I don't have enough air to blow it. Because I'm an asthmatic. I can't play a trumpet.
Oh, wow.
Or tuba or whatever. So talk to me.
Well, I mean, we all have different interests. We all have different aspirations. And I think the sky is the limit. Do I think everybody is destined to be a mathematician or a scientist? No. But again, for me, it's about options. It's about options, access, and exposure. Again, especially at the K-12 level, the elementary and the middle school level, that's critical. When I was in school many years ago, we had something called tracking. If you weren't taking Algebra 1 by, I think, 7th or 8th grade, you were already off track. Like you were not going to be able to, be able to take the courses that you need. So if you're a parent, I would say, and your child has an interest in science or math is critical, like you said, to math is pretty much like a gatekeeper for opening up access to STEM majors, to the STEM world. So if your child has an interest in STEM, like if you are a parent, you really need to make sure your child is taking the right math courses at the right time to make sure they're even on track and that they're taking the appropriate courses. They're taking the higher level courses, even though they seem harder, that they're taking advantage of AP or advanced placement courses are available. We know there are some access issues where a lot of schools in underserved communities don't even have the courses that are needed, but take advantage of what's available, because again, math is a gatekeeper to opening up doors to higher level courses and entering that STEM world. So that's what I would say to, if you have a child at the, elementary or middle school age. In high school, if you're in the 12th grade,
it's too late.
You're pretty much
you're behind.
You're pretty much off track. Yeah, you're
very
much off track.
You're not even near the track if you haven't been, doing the things that you need to do.
Yeah.
But I'm about to show you a bit of history and trivia and something that belongs in the Smithsonian. What? Sean's outlines.
Oh, wow. Oh,
yes, I have 4 of these. Listeners, I just pulled out, if you took a math or a science class or anything in college, you've heard of the Shams Outline series. And I have my mathematical handbook in my hand right now. Wow. It only cost $10.95 back in the day.
Wow. So not $100. Okay.
No, not I think they make Shams Outline series anymore. But the point I want to make, and as Iris stated, that if you can't get past the math, you're not getting, you're not going to do well. I have my undergraduate fundamentals of physics textbook. General physics. This was the not general. This was the calculus-based physics. Halliday and Resnick. I still have my book. I have all of my books. I have this laptop sitting on top of my calculus book, and so.
Oh wow.
Yes, it's about doing the work. It's about. I know in 2019 we have different ways that we're teaching. We're using more technology, but at the same time, whatever the method or technique is to teach that information, it still has to get through. It's the same information. It's just that we have now different types of ways of conveying the information.
Yeah, different strategies.
Different types of learners from the types of learners we were. We used to have to sit down with a piece of paper and a pencil and write stuff down and work it out. And I still believe that that's the only way you can do math and physics. You can't do that on a computer. You have to really write it out, draw it out. That stuff requires, especially like physics, chemistry, biology. You need a picture. You got to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Figure out how to, understand, comprehend, and solve any problems. So
And as a chemist, think about the high schools and the, you know, the small colleges and HBCUs that are trying to teach chemistry without a chemistry lab. Like I can't imagine trying to learn chemistry without doing a chemistry lab.
Right.
That is integral, but you know, that's the case, you know, for some high schools in underserved areas, and even some HBCUs that don't even have the funding, you know, to keep the chemistry, you know, programs going. So I mean, there are a lot of, you know, issues surrounding access and resources. But again, you know, I really think it's about, you know, exposure and access and, you know, just being aware of what's available. You know, really providing resources again for, you know, in my personal life, like I said, I do a lot of K-12 outreach and working with parents and working with teachers just to even get students into the pipeline, you know, to get to higher ed, which is my professional world. But yeah, I mean, a lot of issues. Math is integral. As a chemist, physical chemistry was not my forte. I was an organic
organic
and analytical chemist. I stayed away from from thermodynamics and physical chemistry. Even within the sciences, I had no love for the life science. I was not interested in any living thing or animals or plants. So I knew chemistry was it for me. was it for me. But
so how do you get engaged with the school system and the teachers? You have a relationship with superintendents, or what is it that you do where you can get your teachers in your school systems to come out, or how do you do that?
Yeah, it's a combination. So a lot of my work is in the informal science work, not in the formal K-12 classroom. And I really love the informal science setting because students can really get engaged and just jump in and, you know, just get their, you know, their hands wet and really get engaged in science. And the formal classroom is so rigid, it doesn't, you know, offer the opportunity for exploration, you know, and reflection. So I pretty much work in the informal science world. So I work with Saturday science programs. You know, I develop programs at churches, at libraries, at community centers. Again, just in these informal spaces where it really gives students the time to, you know, work with other students and to really explore, you know, science. And they don't have to have the best grades. It's whoever comes shows up. So again, a lot of this work I've done in North Carolina when I lived in Pennsylvania for 15 years working in the chemical industry. I led programs for Novachet and other community-based. So my area is really the informal science area and community-based programs and organizations. So that is my arena.
Okay, so teachers come out to those activities with you?
So we recruit students. So students come. A lot of my programs, I require the parent to participate because I feel like if it's not reinforced at home, then you can lose students. So I develop take-home activities that can be done with like grocery store materials or materials from Walmart or the dollar store.
Dollar store, that's my favorite
dollar
place.
store, definitely. Yeah, so I do work with teachers in the formal K-12 setting as far as pedagogy, so just giving them some strategies to teach different types of learners, students from diverse backgrounds. I do that type of work. Then again, my main setting is the informal science setting where I develop informal science programs in the community, students and parents to participate in. The work that I do again with the formal K-12 setting again is just strategies on how to teach science better and how to, you know, really incorporate students' lived experience and really to help them leverage their backgrounds and see themselves in science, because science identity and science self-efficacy, which is confidence in science. I mean, we know from the research that if you can't see yourself in science, there's a high probability you won't succeed in it. So science identity and science self-efficacy are critical. They're huge in actually building up those constructs for our students.
Right. I have one more loaded question. Okay. Why do programs that are geared towards our students, our meaning students of color, tend to say we are promoting STEM, whatever, for youth in underserved communities, Translate that. Black kids that have no money, or black kids with poor school systems. What's the deal with the underserved communities? Why can't it just be we're promoting STEM for youth or K-12? Why do they have to be an underserved community?
A lot of times they say underrepresented, in addition to underserved. And
yeah, sometimes they say that.
That's true. Underrepresentation is a fact.
But all of them don't have underserved communities.
Yeah, that's true. We're grossly underrepresented.
Yes, we are.
Underserved, and that a lot of our communities don't have access to the resources. So that's what when I hear underserved, it's not a negative connotation about student or the community. It's a negative connotation about, the powers that be, and who haven't provided the resources and the access that's required. So yeah, but I definitely understand what you say. Underserved has a negative connotation, definitely. Definitely under-resourced.
Right.
I would say that under-resourced, but yes, not all of our communities of color are underserved.
And
that's not true by far. Absolutely not equivalent at all.
Right. And I am guilty of using the terminology, and the only reason I use the terminology is because that's one of the buzzwords that's associated with STEM.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And yeah,
that's how you get funding sometimes. I mean, people want to say, I have funded a STEM program or participated in some way with underserved youth or in an underrepresented community, or underrepresented and underserved. They come together sometimes.
Yeah, they shouldn't be all lumped together. I mean, of color is not equivalent to underserved.
But that tends to be, the way it's painted.
Right, you're right.
And so, agree. How can we change that narrative, Iris? How can, I know one of the things that we can do, and one of the things you're already doing, is having the EARN conference. Now, mind you, it is focused on HBCUs, but it's not because they're underserved. Well, let me say this the way I want to say it. These students are college students. They just happen to be at HBCUs.
So actually the conference is open to all students. So it has a large, about 70% of the students who come to EARN are either, students of color or students with disabilities, so underrepresented in STEM. But yeah, the conference is open to all students. It's funded by the HBCU Up Conference, and though a large percentage are underrepresented, but the EARN conference is open to any student in a STEM major that has some research to present or just would like to attend to build their science presentation skills or interact with other STEM majors.
Right, and that's the other thing. All HBCUs are not 100% Black students.
Right, and it's open to predominantly
student body.
Yeah, it's open to students from predominantly white institutions, from Hispanic serving institutions. So it's open to STEM majors in general. At the undergrad and graduate level.
Yes, and so one of the things I also want, Iris, I could talk to you all day, but you've mentioned the MSIs and HBCUs, and they are not the same.
No. And
listeners, Beyond the Classroom, this is what Beyond the Classroom is about. Understanding what's going on beyond the classroom, or even you can be in the classroom and stuff going on you don't know about, such as the difference between HBCU and MSI. The difference is
and a historical perspective also, how
there's a legal before 1964, any university or college that was established for the purpose of educating Black students was considered, or Negroes, whatever they called us back then, was considered an HBCU. If it was for that purpose, minority serving institutions are just one whose numbers go up high enough so that there's a certain percentage of them that are non-white.
Right, okay.
The biggest difference also is, and this is where it gets political and financial,
Mm.
MSIs are eligible for certain grants.
Mm.
They have been designated as MSIs. That's why, for example, your alma mater, which used to not be an MSI, never was an HBCU, is now an MSI.
Mm-hmm.
They can apply for certain funding
Mm-hmm.
through the federal government,
Mm-hmm.
but HBCUs are not eligible to apply for that funding.
Mm.
So, being underrepresented and underserved,
Yeah.
it's taken to a whole new level when it
Yeah.
comes down to policy and stuff. So, Ms.
Mhm.
Dr. Policy, talk to me about what policy changes have been made lately that are positive for HBCUs and minority serving institutions. What's going on in the science world? Has anything been created, implemented, tweaked? What do we have any advantages other than having access to the White House Initiative people?
I mean, again, I would say the thing that comes to mind to me are that are again federal grants that are specifically targeted and only for HBCUs where no other school.
Just HBCUs, not MSIs.
Yeah, no.
That's the difference, because
HBCUs,
I've seen some that have them both on there.
Right.
And that's not right.
You're right.
Sucks, especially if they let them compete with HBCUs for money.
That's true. That's true.
So
I guess no, I have not seen a lot, advancement on that front. Again, but I don't think that should be a reason to deter us or deter.
Oh no. It's just awareness. Right. It's awareness.
It's awareness. It is.
And
it's
that's
awareness and exposure. Yeah.
It's awareness, exposure, and choices.
Mm-hmm.
And that's HBCUs are struggling for a lot of reasons, and a lot of the reasons are because laws and politics are daily being stacked against them.
Mm-hmm.
The initiative and the money and all the other places where all this money is set aside for HBCUs, if they don't know there's money set aside, then how are they going to apply for it? And then next thing you know, the money that was set aside, they were like, well, if y'all not coming for it, there's no need for us to set it aside.
Mm-hmm. But I think that's why platforms like these are critical. So just awareness that these resources are available. HBCUs need to position themselves just like, predominantly white institutions on attracting, quality and talent to their university. That's across the board, whether you're an HBCU or a PWI. So attracting quality talent, attracting the people who have the resources and the knowledge, taking advantage of these platforms and opportunities where we're sharing resources and, these types of opportunities. So I think positioning is key. Having the right people in place at your institution to bring about institutional change and really open up the doors to institutional capacity or research capacity. Like all of those, those issues are the same across the board that each college and university, should be doing. Do HBCUs have unique challenges that other schools don't have? Absolutely.
Yes.
That's true also. But it's an and, that's true also.
Well, yes. Well, in closing, is there anything you would like to say to my listeners on Beyond the Classroom? We have Dr. Iris Wagstaff, and she's on the front lines for our HBCUs, our students, diversity and equity and inclusion in STEM education, and all of the things that are needed right now from someone who is capable of doing them. And I will put that out there again, from someone who is capable of doing them. So, Dr. Wagstaff, I do look forward to coming to EARN and speaking on these subject matters when we have in the winter. So let's close right now with your words of wisdom to the listeners and help parents, researchers, faculty, HBCUs, students, everybody get their STEM bearings straight.
Oh wow, that's a huge task. That's a huge charge. And I guess I'd just like to say that I really credit my mom who's passed away. That's a whole other story and a book I'd like to write. But she was my biggest influence. She never met a scientist, but she raised a scientist. I'm from a small town, Goldsboro, North Carolina, in Eastern North Carolina, the product of a single divorced parent, low income. My mom made $20,000 a year. And again,
oh, y'all were rich.
Yes, yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. She just encouraged me to be anything I wanted to be. I was very involved in the arts. I played the piano, I sang. I was very politically active, and she always called me the activist because I was always politically active all through high school. I was president of my class all through college, student government.
Wow.
So a lot of times when people see scientists or engineers, they think we're one thing, but we're multifaceted.
Yes.
I'm an artist, I'm a scientist, I'm a chemist, I'm an educator.
You're an extrovert.
Yeah, very politically involved.
Oh
so I would just say, like, just the key things, again, access, exposure, and awareness across all levels. That's real. Knowledge is power. Again, knowing what resources are available, taking advantage of those resources, working together.
Yes.
Really partnering with each other.
Is
yeah.
key. Mentoring.
Do a lot of mentoring as well.
I know this is your statement, but I just feel that that's so strong. And you do such a great job of it, because EARN itself is like one giant big mentoring conference.
Yeah, it is.
And I encourage anybody who's interested or eligible to go to EARN in February. It's early this year coming up.
Yeah, 2 weeks early, from the 6th through the 8th in February in Washington, D.C. So
I'm glad you told me, because in my brain, I was like, okay, it's the last week of February.
Yeah, 2 weeks early. Yeah, that's all the space that was left this year.
Okay, well then we're going to be at EARN in Washington, D.C. February 6th through 8th. And you will definitely be hearing from us again about EARN and Dr. Wagstaff. And we'll be doing a little bit of broadcasting from EARN, and Beyond the Classroom will give you a real in-depth and in-your-face look at what Black excellence looks like when we're doing these presentations, talking to these students. They're very focused. They know what they want to do, and they're just phenomenal students. So thank you, Iris.
Thank you, Dr.
Iris
Coleman.
Wagstaff, for coming on Beyond the Classroom. And it's been a very delightful conversation. So
it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Coleman. I appreciate this opportunity to be on your show.
Yes, thank you. And you will be back. All right, listeners, STEM, as I say, start taking essential measures. And until next time.